Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys, today's date, March 17th, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week, so far in this case, and try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is a family-friendly podcast, so we do try to watch our language on here. Some choice words may fly through here and there, but also there will be some things that might be shown tonight that are going to be of a graphic nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, guys, like I said before, hump day. Hopefully all you guys are having a wonderful hump day, or at least looking forward to Thursday at the end of the weekend. I know a lot of us are. But let's go ahead and get into what we got so far this week. We'll first start with the trial of Derek Schaben, the officer who, let's be honest, murdered George Floyd. Of course, as I said before, if you haven't been under a rock, the trial is set to start very soon. However, it actually has a trial setback because of the settlement that was set up with George Floyd's family, a settlement of $27 million. Because of that, two jurors did hear of that settlement, and because of their actions determined by attorneys, have decided to dismiss those jurors, which means that now the case will be delayed back because those two jurors are no longer part of it. Because they always sat there and said that, of course, with the jurors, they sat there and said they felt that they could set aside what they heard about civil court action and maintain impartiality, which I still say is going to be a little bit difficult in this case. The reason being that Derek Chauvin's video of him kneeling on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 43 seconds has been seen around the world. There's probably not too many people that have not seen that video. To sit there and say that they can be impartial would be a little odd, considering the fact, like I said before, it's been seen everywhere and it still can be seen in multiple avenues. So finding jurors who have said they have not seen the video or will try not to be impartial might be a little bit on the difficult side, because simply for the case itself, they want to seat 14 jurors for this case. Well, I should say for this trial, they want to seat 14 jurors, including alternates. Will that happen? It's going to be hard to say. So far, because they had to dismiss two jurors, that means that the case will be pushed back until they actually have a full panel, which we at this time may not know when that's going to happen, as we are waiting for justice. As we're waiting for justice, or at least a law enforcement officer to see justice, it might be a while before that actually happens. But moving right along, guys, like I said before, you probably noticed that a lot of people are no longer, corona, I can't even say it, the coronavirus cases are at a stagnant point. We haven't really seen an increase of cases, but we actually haven't seen a decrease of them as well. Which a lot of people are thinking these are a sign of the times with vaccinations happening, but the CDC has alternate opinions about that.
Numbers and see exactly where we are right now. If you look at the state-by-state case trends, we've used this map for about a year now. 11 states in orange trending up. More new COVID infections right now compared to the data 1 week ago. 11 states trending up. 20 states, that's the beige, holding steady. 19 states, that's the green, trending down. So some progress, but largely a holding pattern. When you look right now, this is a better way to look at it. If you look at cases over the past week, This Sunday number, below 40,000. It's been a long time since we've been below 40,000 new infections. We will see if this is a weekend blip or if it actually stays down. You see over the past week, more likely 50,000 and above. That is a plateau. That's why the director of the CDC, Dr. Walensky, is worried. She says that's too high of a plateau. You need to push this down before you can be more optimistic. One of the concerns, the spread of these variants. Just the UK variant on Thursday was 3,300 cases in 47 states and here in the District of Columbia. Today, 4,700 cases in 48 states plus D.C. So the UK variant is everywhere. Just put it that way. It is everywhere, and the case count is growing as it comes up. Travel, you heard Dr. Walensky voicing some concern. Americans think we're back to normal already. 5.2 million people flew since Thursday. A busy weekend, including 1.4 million screened on Friday by the TSA. That is a record during this pandemic, 1.4 million. The vaccine numbers are getting better. More than 1 in 5 Americans have had at least one shot, partially vaccinated. More than 11%, we're in double digits now, have been fully vaccinated. Those are good signs. People are getting the second dose. A new survey shows only 3.4% so far have missed their second dose. That leaves public health officials optimistic. People are getting the first dose, coming back for the second. They do caution these are largely healthcare workers, frontline workers, so they might have easier access. See if that number holds up as we move out. Now you walk through some of the vaccines. The Biden administration has the right to be optimistic about what it's doing. Saturday, 3.2 million shots in arms. That's a record. You see the average is up now, just shy of about 3 million when you 7-day average it out, 2.3 million. 2.4 million, excuse me, the 7-day average. The administration trying to push that even higher. This is a concern if you look at it here. 23% of white Americans, 23% of black Americans, 20% of Hispanic Americans say they might not get this vaccine. Look at the numbers bipartisan. Will not get the vaccine when available. 33% of Republicans say that. So there's some concern about access and attitude when it comes to getting a vaccine, especially among that. You've heard for months, when will we reach herd immunity? When will we reach herd immunity? Dr. Fauci today saying, stop worrying about that. Just please go out and get a vaccine.
We should not get so fixated on this elusive number of herd immunity. We should just be concerned about getting as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can, because herd immunity is still somewhat of an elusive number. We made a projection of it would likely be, I've said many times, somewhere between 70 and 85%.
So let's think about that for a second, guys. Like I said before, with the CDC, yes, vaccinations are working. Biden's 100 shots within 100 million shots within 100 days. He might be onto something. Then again, it's a lot better than this previous administration. Yes, but it does. It's mentioned that also John King is seeing it also points out that there also is disarray. I mean, let's be honest. When it comes to black people, we are a little bit leery when it comes to the medical profession because of history, because of previous experiences, things of that nature. I myself, because I sat there and said, once the vaccine becomes available, I'm definitely taking it. Because honestly, what other alternative do you have? I mean, herd immunity, which again, you hear this thrown out on rock. For all those that know what herd immunity is, it's basically when that a certain population of a certain group develops an immunity to a certain contagion or virus or disease or something like that. The problem is with herd immunity is that, say for instance, you're in a group of 100 people. Let's just say you get hit with some type of plague. So that means let's just say for you to have a herd immunity, that out of your 100 people, let's say 75 of them have to die. So the herd immunity in that case, that means 25 people would have developed herd immunity to actually deal with whatever contagion virus that actually hit the group, while the original 75 had to suffer. Messed up, isn't it? And yet people still want to go with that. That's not, I mean, that's why Dr. Fauci and a lot of medical professionals are sitting there saying, we don't need to really worry about herd immunity because it's not actually going to work the way people think it's going to work. That's why shots need to be taken. Although I'm really not surprised about Republicans saying that, they're either going to be against it or not against it. They're going to be against it or they're not getting the shot or whatever, considering the fact that their cult leader Trump got vaccinated and didn't tell anybody until he was pressured about it. Funny, isn't it? But again, like I said before, I know I'm getting the shot. I've kind of, like I said, I was going to wait because I myself am not in the more extreme needy cases of getting a shot. So I don't mind waiting to get my shot or find where I can actually get that done, just because I know eventually I am going to get it. But again, I stress very heavily. Definitely look into areas where we have pharmacy, Walmart, Kroger's. I know some Kroger's have pharmacies. I know Target some has pharmacies. I know your local drugstores. But either way, definitely keep informed about where the shots are being taken, because as soon as they have availability, definitely try to get there. Most insurance plans do cover the shot, so a lot of people can get it at no cost to you. So definitely check that out, because that's exactly what I'm doing. But moving right along, guys, I did want to talk about the shooting in Atlanta, because a white supremacist decided to basically assassinate 8 Asian Americans. And it is amazing to me, again, whenever white supremacy comes up, that this is said.
Acknowledge the fact. I know that we've received a number of calls about, is this a hate crime? We are still early in this investigation. So we cannot make that determination at this moment. Again, we are very early in this investigation. Even though we have made an arrest, there's still a lot more work to be done. And so with that being said, I would just wanted to make sure that I know that that's going to be a concern, and that you were probably asking that of many of us. We are just not there as of yet. Again, so thank you all, and we'll start with Sheriff Reynolds.
Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and stop him right there, because the person that they're talking about that was apprehended yesterday, there was a white male who decided to basically go into 2 massage parlors in Atlanta and decided to assassinate 8 Asian American people. And it happened, and it's like they found him an hour later arrested, which, as stories are starting to come out now, that they're trying to sit there and say his excuse, and I really can't make this up, his excuse was because he was dealing with a sexual addiction, and because of that, he was trying to work it out. Even though reports are now saying that he actually visited those massage parlors previously as to map them out. I'm sorry, let's call a spade a spade. Because this is just adding up to what not only what other news sites have been saying, but also what I've mentioned here as well, is that this all has a pattern. Considering that, Trump, when he was in office, called, the coronavirus the China virus, said it was from China, in which he didn't actually stop his people. He may have not said that Chinese people has something to do with it, because his followers basically went with whoever in their mind looked Chinese or Asian American, and we have seen a record amount of attacks in the Asian American community. This right here is simply white terrorism. White domestic terrorism is what it is. And again, there's only one group of people out there that we know that when they're caught doing something, that they decide to blame something else. I'm gonna let you figure out which people I'm talking about. But again, it's like I said before, to say it's not a hate crime, it's amazing to me. How do we not call this a hate crime? I mean, it's just like Dylan Roof. That was a hate crime. He went to a black church and sat in with them and decided to come back and shoot up the place. That is a hate crime. The same way that the Alabama bombings where 9 black girls were killed. Hate crime. The same sense where this white man decided to go in a massage parlor and kill 8 Asian Americans. Hate crime. I don't see what the problem is in this situation. I really don't. I don't see why it takes forever and a day to figure out his motives, because he literally spelled out his motives for the world to see. It's a hate crime. Let's call it what it is. But moving right along, guys, did want to talk about Biden for a little bit, who is, Biden's kind of taking a victory lap right now. I mean, let's be honest, he did keep one of his promises, somewhat. He did get us the third stimulus plan, the third stimulus plan of $1,400, albeit that he said 2,000, but let's also be honest, when it comes to helping out the American people, there's just going to be some folks who are going to sit there and say they don't really need this, or, we don't want to pay them anymore. Let's be honest. Happens across the board, whether it's Republican or Democrat. But he did keep his promise of the $1,400. He did keep, that's one promise. That's more than what Trump did in his 4 years. That also being said, as the COVID relief plan has been signed, nearly $2 trillion, Biden has also sat there and said that he plans to make a small, significant tax hike to those over making $400,000. Now, keep in mind, this is different from Elizabeth Warren, who believes there should be a wealth tax, and I certainly agree, because the wealthy can pay for it. No matter how you look at it, the wealthy can pay for it. However, Joe Biden did say in an interview that anybody making more than $400,000 will see a small to a significant tax increase. If you make $400,000, if you make less than $400,000, you won't see one single penny different in additional federal tax. I'm with that. I can't. Here's the thing, and I keep saying this: the people who argue this, who say, I love when they say this, because again, it's just like with the stimulus plan. Of course, there were moderate Democrats out there saying, well, we need to put a cap on this because we just can't pay everybody. Fine, put a cap on it. In which they did. Now, was the cap a little bit low for couples? Yes. I still think for the simple fact of the matter is that, couples taxes, couples as far as the limit cap was $120,000. I thought it was a little bit too low, because that just means that if you and your significant other both have jobs that are paying well over $60,000, then that means that puts you out of the running for the full $1,400. And I think that's a little messed up. It should be a little bit higher, because you're punishing those who may have a higher, granted, $60,000 a year is $20,000 more than the average American household may have, but it still penalized them in the same sense as if they were making $100,000 apiece. That being said, when I sit there and see the $400,000, anybody making more than $400,000 a year will be significantly taxed. I do one better for you, Joe. Why not just go ahead and do a wealth tax? If you did a wealth tax, if you eliminated the annuities, and if you eliminated legacy taxes, if you increased, not eliminated, if you increased those, you would have all the revenue you want from the rich. And the beauty part about it is, the rich would still be rich. The one thing I will say, whether in a Democratic or Republican administration, the rich always do well. Even though, simple fact of the matter is, they do need to start taxing them more. Because let's be honest, the corporate tax rate right now is 21%. It used to be higher than 37%. Because that's what it needs to be. Because here's the funny thing about this. Under Trump, for all those that don't know, Trump actually cut the corporate tax rate to 21%. And he actually did not cut the individual tax rate, because at the time it was 36.9%. So yes, corporations were paying lower than taxes than you under Trump's administration. So Biden is basically just reversing that. Of course, now the individual top paying tax rate will revert back to 21%. The corporate tax rate, they're currently saying right now, will be somewhere between 40 to 42%. I personally think it should be higher. That's just me. But there's going to be a lot of other things that he's doing in there, as far as, restoring credits for caregiving and first-time home buyers and solar and green renewable energy sources that you do in homes. I dig that. I really do. Now, again, is this going to see a lot of opposition in Congress? Yes. Expect that the Republican side will not vote for this at all. And again, this is where the Democrats will have to use that slim majority, which means that every Democrat, including Munchin, will need to get on board. Which also means that, for the simple fact of the matter is, yes, this is going to be a lot of opposition, because the Republicans are basically doing what they do best. They create a mess, wait for the janitor, and then complain about how this mess got here, as if they have amnesia for the last 4 years. That's always the way they worked. So like I said before, it is going to be interesting what they see, interesting what they do now with this being on the table. But also, there's another thing that's actually being talked about in Congress, which again, a lot of people should pay attention about, because you've probably heard this said a lot. During the week, actually. The word filibuster, in which the filibuster, if anybody doesn't know, the filibuster is actually a mechanism used in the Senate to basically be used to reach a 60-count majority. So whenever the 60-count majority is reached, of course, the law is passed. Now, because Congress is at a 50-50 stalemate right now, that it might be slightly difficult to get that majority, in which Democrats have sat there and discussed very much so of removing the filibuster, which means that if you do so, that means that you can pass it with a slim majority, which is basically what Democrats have right now. Republicans are against it because that actually eliminates the little bit of power that they have in the Senate. Of course, we've heard Turtle Mitch McConnell saying that removing the filibuster would be a bad idea, considering the fact that he used the filibuster to actually get 2 Supreme Court picks in and a Trump tax plan across the board. So it's interesting that he talks about It's interesting that he talks about removing the filibuster would be a bad idea because, well, basically he used it to get what he wanted across the board. So again, Biden is sitting there saying that we don't need to really remove it. We need to tweak it to a talking filibuster, which means that for all those who don't know, a talking filibuster kind of works a little bit different. You basically just talk till the clock runs out. The funny part about talking filibuster is that Wendy, former governor of Texas, actually used that when she was speaking against women's rights. She literally, in a pair of Nikes, spoke on the Senate floor a record of 7, 8 hours, I believe, and did a talking filibuster for 7, 8 hours. She did not relent her time on the floor, and I thought it was one of those amazing things you see in Congress when you're really trying to fight for laws. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. Also, another story out of Texas, which is interesting. For all those that don't remember, Texas is still recovering from a really surprise winter storm. And as I reported a couple of weeks ago, that a lot of people were not looking forward to electricity bills after having to, run power. Because keep in mind, Texas is not on the national grid. They actually regulate their own power grid, which could have been the problem from Jump Street, but that's another day. But anyway, a lot of people were kind of worried about seeing bills in not just in the 100s to 200s, like the $5,000 and $10,000 and $30,000, because they buy their energy wholesale. Well, it looks like there actually might be some help for Texans because the Attorney General at Texas has sat there and said that $29 million of electric bills from Texas winter storms will be forgiven. So it's amazing that Griddy Electric is actually Griddy Electric is actually the utilities over the farm in Texas, who was actually billing these people at alarming rates. Keep in mind, these folks were, getting billed $10,000, $15,000 just because of the rates. It is completely asinine. But Griddy has sat there, but Griddy was at a point because they were actually getting sued by the Attorney General, have decided that part of their bankruptcy plan, which I thought was interesting because they did file for bankruptcy, that part of their bankruptcy plan was to basically forgive $29 million of electric bills. So at least some Texans will be getting some relief from that. Because like I said before, nobody wants to, after a long winter storm, nobody is really wanting to come back to a bill where it's just like, oh, by the way, you owe $10,000 for the last 2 weeks. Wait, what? Nobody wants that bill. But also, another thing that I did want to talk about, guys, was I have to give Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer credit. He is not going to let the student loan debt forgiveness go. The funny part is Chuck Schumer did actually come back on Biden and say that we need to at least forgive $50,000 in federal student loan debt. He is pressuring them that this needs to happen. Of course, him and Elizabeth Warren are ready to cancel $50,000 per student loan, while Biden is wanting to cancel up to only $10,000, and has argued that the government shouldn't forgive debt for people who went to Harvard, Yale, and Penn. I mean, don't get me wrong. Biden does have a lot of great points, but even though he loves to sit there and say he was the poorest politician in Washington, you're not poor now, Biden. And yes, your kids did have debt, but also your kids, through connections and through your political connections, however, were able to pay off their debts. So not everybody has the same opportunities, which is interesting that we use that word. But saying only $10,000, I think that's a slap in the face. $50,000 would be great. It's a nice step up. But Senator Sanders, because I keep coming back to him, has said it best. Senator Sanders sat there and said that we need to cancel all student debt. We have the money to do it. If we can forgive trillionaires, if we can forgive billionaires, if we can give Wall Street a cash influx when they play with the house's money, then surely we can give student debt loan forgiveness to everyone. Why? because it immediately changes credit portfolios. A lot of people have that load off their shoulders, like me, because I have student debt. So again, it changes a lot of things. I mean, you increase spending, you increase home ownerships, because a lot of banks who, then again, we bailed out, will still not give to individuals. So again, that kind of tells you something, folks. But we will actually keep that in mind as we see what Biden will do. Sorry, a little bit of thunder. We have a little bit of light show outside. But it'll be interesting to see what Biden does. I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to take a lot of arm twisting, because I don't see Kamala Harris coming forward, even though Biden and Harris both sat there and said that student debt loan forgiveness needs to happen, but I think $10,000 is an insult. They need to go higher. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. The other thing that I got, guys, like I said, we only got like a couple more stories, because like I said, middle of the week, not really a lot. Was this one where, of course, a case out of South Los Angeles where the individual was killed by cops, where the cop said one thing, but the video shows another.
In Wilmington, Delaware, that happened in the early hours of January 13th. Police body camera video that was released just today. We're going to show that to you, but first this warning that the video is graphic. A Newcastle County police officer who was out looking for stolen cars approaches a vehicle. According to the police, Lamond Moses was asleep and the officer wakes him up. Now that's when they got into a verbal confrontation. Moses is heard saying that his mom lives right there. The officer says that he sees marijuana in the car and asks Moses to get out, but instead we see Moses drive forward. Presumably he turns around. The footage then shows Moses appearing to drive in the general direction of the three police officers, though not directly at them, when two of them, according to police, fire shots, killing Moses. These officers are now on administrative leave and under investigation, and the Newcastle County Police Department said that based on this video, they can't draw any conclusions about whether these officers acted within policy and law until all facts are known and the investigation is complete. Joining us tonight is Amanda Spence, the widow of Lamond Moses, and the family's attorney, Emeka Igwe. Let me just start out by saying that we're so sorry for your loss and really appreciate you spending the time with us tonight. Ms. Spence, I'd like to start with you. I know it has to be so incredibly difficult to see that video. You have said that it contradicts the police narrative and that even though he was driving in their direction, the officers were not in harm's way when they shot your husband. Give us a little more about that. Explain what you mean by that.
I mean, it can only really show from the body cam footage precisely, but the way that their cars were angled, he was able to swerve and maneuver through them, but that is just not how they handled it. They shot as he drove through them and then continued to shot from the back of the vehicle after his car had already crashed. It's nothing like what they originally told me. It was supposed to be a 911 call at first. Then it was a knock at the window. And when you see the video, there was no knock at the window. He was harassed at least 2 minutes before anything happened at the end. He was definitely harassed and bullied, it seems to me. I'm just trying to get to the point where they are correct with their actions. I need to understand that.
So you're saying that the police have changed their story multiple times in their conversations with you. Would you say that they may have some defense by saying that your husband tried to weaponize his car and hurt them, and they felt they were in harm's way, and that's why they shot in self-defense?
No, I don't believe. He was somewhat blockaded in, but there was a avenue for him to get through them. I honestly believe they shot. I don't know, because I don't know their thoughts, is what I want to know. Why did you open fire when you weren't honestly in harm's way?
And Mr. Igwe, what do you see when you see this video, and what would justice look like for you in this case?
What I see is a false narrative that was put up by Newcastle County Police. The original statement was that Mr. Moses was trying to run away, run them over. They said that the officers were in imminent danger. The video clearly contradicts that. Mr. Moses was not attempting to run over these police officers. In fact, he actually veers his vehicle away from them in order to avoid hitting the officers. The officers are clearly out of the zone of danger. They're clearly not in imminent danger, and yet they decided to be the judge, jury, and executioner of Mr. Moses and ended up wrongfully taking his life. What does justice look like? Justice looks like these officers being immediately terminated. There's no need for a lengthy investigation. This has been going on since January. These officers need to be prosecuted. Delaware, in its history, has never prosecuted and convicted an officer for wrongfully killing or shooting any individuals in Delaware, and this needs to be the first time that these officers are held accountable.
Now, with this story, it is actually ongoing because, again, I can see their point of what they're saying, because also because you think the body cam footage, things of that nature, that it's like if he was really trying to hit them, I mean, you think he'd go full speed right into them, not veering off. At the same time, what has compelled the officers to pull their guns? I mean, usually if he's not a threat, he's getting away from you, there's no need to pull a gun unless, again, you pull a gun and scream him in danger. Now, of course, this again wasn't also the same. This also was the same story we've heard before. I know, we shouldn't get desensitized to it. It's simple fact of the matter is just that, in this case, yes, there needs to be an investigation, but it's going to be hard to say that the cops were in danger. I mean, the individual did not have a gun, as far as we know. It wasn't shown to an officer. The officer was really just more go up to the man because he saw him asleep in the car. At the same time, he was driving away. Now, none of that from that opinion looks like that there was a need for lethal force. But the officers decided to box him in. He veered off to the right to avoid the person because I would like to think, and logically, if you don't care about the person in front of you and you're in a car, then you will probably use the car as a weapon to get them out the way, but you see him veer off. And again, they decide to fire. So if anything that's going to be looked into is why the officers fire on a fleeing suspect unless there was a weapon found. Now, again, because this is an officer-involved shooting, it will probably take forever today. I mean, I'm surprised they gave this information out so far, but we will follow that story. But the reason why I want to put these stories side to side, because here in Nashville, we actually did have another officer shooting. And in this case, I have to give this some context. This one is very different from the other video I just showed.
Was patrolling in the area of Brickchurch Pike and Ewing Drive when he spotted a black 2015 Chevrolet Camaro. Officer Baker was aware that the registered owner of the Camaro, convicted felon DeMond Buchanan, had 6 outstanding drug warrants charging 5 felonies and 1 misdemeanor that were issued last month for possession of heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, Xanax, and crack cocaine. Officer Baker radioed to check on the airborne status of a police helicopter, believing that the driver of the Camaro might try to flee.
23.
23.
Is there one still available? Or up?
The Camaro stopped in the parking lot of the Dollar General store. Officer Baker found that it was being driven not by the wanted drug felon, but by Nika Nicole Holbert.
23. Everything's 10-4 right now. He's not in here.
10-4. You want me to give everyone a signal line?
10-4.
While Ms. Holbert essentially complied with Officer Baker's directives during the first few minutes of their interaction, her compliance changed after Officer Baker found what appeared to be marijuana and a powder substance in her bag and attempted to detain her while waiting for backup officers. As you will see, Officer Baker drew his non-lethal taser in an effort to safely bring Ms. Holbert into custody. Officer Baker drew his service pistol when he saw that Ms. Holbert had pulled a gun. As he demanded that she put the gun down, Holbert shot Baker. He returned the fire.
Just bring your bag out here. Ma'am, stop going through it. You come step right back here. What did you take out of it?
Nothing. I was
okay. All right, listen. just come back here. I think we're getting off on the wrong foot, okay?
Because I'm really confused on why I'm getting stopped.
He's got several warrants.
Okay, that has nothing to do with me.
You don't know who's in the car.
Nobody's in our car.
Well, now I know that. However, now I'm going to address the other problems.
Okay, so you want my bag and all my belongings.
So just step right back here.
Can I use the restroom?
And let you know it's being audio and video recorded, just to let you know.
Okay.
23, if you did have one more, that would be good.
10-4, dispatch any unit near Ewing Drive and Brick Church, Ewing Drive and Brick Church.
Can we step back here?
21 to 23, do you need me code 3?
Negative, just code 2. So it's just in here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was there...
I'm about 5 minutes from you.
Is this?
Yes. It's probably another bad week. Hey, Mom, I need you to come to Alpha Trinity Lane right here where Sitco is, the Dollar General.
23 to 25.
I just got pulled over because the my name is on the car. And he wanted to know if he was in the car with me, but he's not in the car with me. But I do got weed.
Hey, are you available?
I'm right here at the Dollar General.
It can be in a couple minutes.
What is this?
Brick Church.
Brick Church.
And Ewing.
Brick Church.
13, can I have you starting around? You're about 4 minutes away. Disregard, actually. Disregard on that.
Yeah, I'm not done with that, though. Where's your lighter at?
In the car.
13, it says you're about 7 minutes away.
I'll get it for you in a second, okay?
So Ewing Drive and Brick
right there
Church
in your
and the Dollar General. Can I have you start around to 23?
You scaring me.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on. Here, do me a favor, turn around.
No, hold
Turn
on.
around.
Don't put me in handcuffs. I haven't done anything wrong.
Ma'am.
No, don't put me
You're about to get tased.
No!
Get down! Get down on the ground! Down on the ground!
No! 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 I didn't do nothing.
Step out. Ma'am! Put the gun down! Put the gun down! 23 shots fired! Shots fired!
10-4, 13, keep at that code 3.
I'm hit. Step out. Ma'am! Put the gun down! Put the gun down! 23 shots fired! Shots fired!
10-4, 13, keep at that code 3.
I'm hit.
Okay, so that was actually the shooting that actually occurred on March 12th. This, and like I said before, I'm usually the first person to say F the police. I said it in my Facebook post. I'm usually the first person to say F the police. I think they have gotten away with the history of killing minorities, and their officers get off scot-free. They may lose their jobs in one precinct, but will be transferred and immediately hired as a cop somewhere else. I have always been the first to say that, only because, you know, we have a long list of people that were killed by police, and they have yet to see justice outside of maybe 2 people. That being said, in this situation of this video that was released by the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department, the officer did everything right. The officer actually did everything that we've asked police officers to do. We've asked them to politely, be polite, tell us of the situation, keep it in a calm tone. Don't immediately go for the arrest. Don't immediately go for the, not intimidation factor or things of that nature. You can literally hear you hear the officer sit there and say, well, the reason why I pulled you over is because I ran your plates. Let's be honest. Cops will run plates every chance they get. They have a ticket quota. Let's just be honest about that. So, of course, he pulls her over and says, well, ma'am, the reason why I pulled you over is because I ran the license plates and it belonged to somebody that had multiple warrants. Okay, I'm not that person. He goes, okay, I can see that, but I don't know who's in the car with you. There's nobody in the car here with me. I can see that. So we need to address the other problem. I need to, give you, checking and search. In which you can tell when he shows things up, you see him holding certain things that he found. Of course, she is just trying, well, can I go to the bathroom? Can I go do this? Can I go do that? And I'm like, you sound more suspect as he's asking questions. Keep in mind, we also ask officers to de-escalate the situation. I've sat there and said, along with a multitude of others, that officers need to learn how to de-escalate the situation. You hear him say, ma'am, if you'll just come back here, because I believe we got off on the wrong foot. You can see him already trying to reset the conversation to make her feel calm. And don't get me wrong, I understand as black folks, we are immediately alarmed when we get pulled over. We are immediately alarmed because we've seen how this story has played out before. We have. That being said, the officer again tries to explain, you were caught, you had this and this on you, so, put your hands behind your back. She takes off. She grabs the purse. She runs around. He tases her. Multiple times you can hear him saying, ma'am, you're going to get tased. Ma'am, if you don't stop, you're going to get tased. You hear him verbally saying it until she hops back in the car. He does tase her, and he lets off. That was the thing. You see him tasing the woman, and he lets off to get control over her again. Of course, she back in the car, and you can hear him say, ma'am, drop the gun, because now he has to go from lethal to non-lethal. And she fires the shot. You can tell the first shot came from her. He returned fire. So not only did he I got to give this officer credit. Not only did he, didn't go for the lethal option, like we saw in the previous video. He didn't go for the lethal option until he saw the gun. And then he sat there and waited to fire until he was fired upon. At the same time, the woman in the video drops the gun and drives off, which it doesn't show in this video, but later on in the story, it does show that because of the blood loss that she did, drive into a ditch, in which she was taken to a hospital and was pronounced dead later on. The officer, I looked at this video multiple times. The officer did everything we asked him to do. It is hard to sit there and say the officer's at fault, because I know a lot of people who live in Nashville or who have saw this video were like, well, what did the officer had to do so he didn't have to pull her over. Well, again, this is what we talk about. We can't sit there and say we need the officers, and again, this is just something I'm pointing out because I have to say it from both sides. We cannot ask law enforcement to improve on the skills because that guy in that video who was a cop did everything right. I can't fault him because unfortunately the woman and her decision of pulling that gun led to her end. There's no words for that. However, I do find it amazing that when the police find themselves nothing and then completely not at fault, that video gets put up for everybody to see. But, if we go back to the previous video where that man was shot trying to flee police, and at that point in time, we don't know if he had a gun or not, that video is still being looked at. And I just find it, like I said, I find it interesting. And it could be that this is just more transparency of allowing us to see what's going on. But again, I cannot fault that officer because he did exactly everything that we asked him to do. It's just that simple. Well, of course, we'll follow that story because again, the mother of the deceased woman is trying to pursue legal options, and I'm trying to figure out how, because How in the blue are you going to pursue legal options when the person that was the deceased basically caused the situation? I think at that point, the only thing that the mother should be planning for is, unfortunately, for the funeral for her child. That's just me. But that's really all the stories that we got, guys, for this one. And so we're going to definitely move on to a feel-good segment because Lord knows we need it after that. And usually, like I say, on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things, both good and bad. And sometimes we cover the really soul-destruction things. And we always want to end it up on a good note. You know, make you feel good about yourself, restore some faith in humanity. And in this case, this is no exception because this is basically probably the most interesting wedding proposal I've ever seen. It involved a baby.
Been in the NICU for 10 months, and she's been making tremendous progress here at New York Presbyterian. Today, I'm gonna ask her mom to marry me so we can live the rest of our lives together. Say yes. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Oh, that's great. Mazel tov to that couple because it would have been very awkward if she said no. That being said, guys, that's really all that we got for That's How the Frack We Got Here midweek edition. We will be back Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon to cover the weekend recap of everything that's happened so far. But before I do get out of here, I do want to do some shameless plugging. The link at the bottom, if you copy and paste that into a browser, will take you to my link tree that has every one of my podcasts, also in YouTube and Facebook form. So please like and share the Facebook group, like and share the How the Frack We Got Here YouTube page, and basically let me know, guys, what you think about that. Also, like I said before, if you like the show, definitely let me know, and also share with your friends. You might be some people out there that actually like the format of what we're going with, as far as just giving you the news straight and allowing you to make up your own mind. Hopefully, like I said before, like, share, and let's actually grow that up because that's exactly what we need to do. Because I do believe that representation matters. That also being said, guys, I do also want to talk about my travel page. I do want to talk about Uncle Obi's adventures and more. As you guys know, I do travel. Yes, your boy can do travel, whether it's down the street, across the state, or across the pond. Let me be that person that gets you there because my goal is to basically get you where you want to be and save money. That's two things in life that everybody loves: having a vacation and saving a little bit of green. I can do that for you. So let me do the legwork. Basically, you tell me where you want to go and what dates, and I try to get you the best deal humanly possible to get you to where you want to be. Because at Uncle Obi's Adventures and More, we just don't sell travel, we sell great memories. And yes, right now there is a $100 referral. There's a $100 referral that I'm doing. So if you know somebody that actually is going to travel, whether it's booking a rental car, hotel, airfare, all the above, no matter where they go, if you refer them to me and they book with me, then my friend, it's $100 in your pocket, however you want it. Except Bitcoin. But anyway, I still make sure you get paid because basically I do believe in paying it forward. So if they book with me, it's a $100 referral, which means you get paid, and there is no limits on those referrals that come to me. Now, of course, I do want to talk about my brother from a different mother who will be returning very soon. I am talking about my buddy Vaughn, Big VZA Dot, on Facebook. If you are not his friend, you should be. He's friendly sometimes. But once you get the Big VZ down on Facebook and go to his videos, these are actually all of his previous podcasts. He will be returning back with his podcast very soon. But just to give you a rundown of each of them, the first one's called the VSC Intercast. The Intercast can be a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or trailers. I call Vaughn the king of the weird trailers because he always finds the most interesting ones. Some of them are pretty good, and then some of them maybe question our friendship. But I still love them anyway. But it's definitely an interactive show, so you can definitely comment, like, share, and repeat that. He also has another show that, for the sake of this podcast, we're going to call it RAF. Think of RAF like America's Funniest Home Videos if done by WorldStar. It's meant to be adults only, so don't bring your kids. But for us adults, it's for us to laugh at because of the Darwins of the world, to basically reset our weeks on a good note. But definitely it's an interactive show, so definitely like, share, and repeat that as well. Another podcast I'm waiting for him to come back with is the Rhythmness Music Podcast. You can read us over the rhythm, in which he and others like myself will listen to music whether Vaughn finds it or ask us to find it, and we discuss it and see if we like it or not. I have actually found a lot of great music that Vaughn has actually brought me to, and I thank him for that, because that is the whole point of his podcast. It's not just talking about music, whether it's good or bad. It's to introduce you to something that you never heard before and basically put you on something new. And Vaughn has done that for me many a times, and I kind of did that to him, but I think he's listened to, he knows I got eclectic taste. I listen to everything. But anyway, it's an interactive show, so definitely like, share, and repeat the Rhythmness Music Podcast as well. And finally, he has another show, actually more of a pop-up. More of a presentation, a musical showcase, if you will, because honestly, Vaughn is like the Bruno Mars of producing, because he is not going to produce something until it's perfected, which he gives you beats exactly like this. Now I have to pause it because if I play it for another 10 seconds, I gotta pay him. But what that basically is funking around. Vaughn is a beat maker, which means he loves to tickle the ivory keys. A Kanye without the craziness of the musical scale, if you will. But he definitely likes to play beats from beginning to end, and if you are a person that's interested in buying that beat that he created, then Vaughn will definitely tell you it's for sale. Just hit him up at BigVZA on Facebook, and he'll give you the details on how he can actually do that. And like I said before, funking around is usually a daily thing, depending on when Vaughn feels. It sometimes be 3 days in a row, depending on how he feels. But definitely, like I said before, no beat is ever the same, and he is a very creative brother. But all of his shows, he will be returning. I really cannot wait, because a lot has happened since his hiatus. But I guarantee he's going to have a lot to say about everything, and honestly, I cannot wait. But definitely look him up, Big VZA down on Facebook and Big VZA down on social media to see when he actually ever do anything. As for myself, my podcast scheduling hasn't changed. Well, it actually has changed slightly. I should take that back. Of course, every Wednesday from 8:30 to 10, as you're watching right now, is the midweek edition of How the Frack We Got Here. Of course, on Friday at 8:30 to 10 p.m. will be the Get Bit podcast. That's my blurred podcast in which I cover video games, anime, television, movies, and comics. Because, like I said before, I'm starting to actually get a lot of people that actually discuss with me on that podcast that actually have a lot more extensive comic knowledge than I do. So for once, it's great. So I do love it. And also, we will be talking about a lot that's happened over this week. Like I said before, we will be covering the CW shows as far as the episodes of Superman and Lois, Black Lightning, and The Flash. We'll also cover the first episode of The Falcon and Winter Soldier, which should be premiering Friday on Disney+. We will also be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, which, if you are watching the clock, it will be available, I believe, 11 p.m. today on HBO Max. We'll also be covering that. It will be spoilers, so if you don't want to... So I'm just going to let you know off the bat, we will be discussing spoilers for Zack Snyder's Justice League on Friday. But again, and also information about Demon Slayer's movie, The Infinity Train, for a U.S. release. All of that we will talk about on Get Bit come Friday between 8:30 and 10 p.m. And also, on Saturday, like I said before, on Saturday is the weekend recap of How the Frack We Got Here from 10 a.m. to noon. And this Saturday night, we will be having an Off Limits podcast between 8:30 and 10 p.m. Now, what is Off Limits? Off Limits, as the name implies, means that we talk about anything and everything. There is nothing sacred. There is no line. And trust me, after I talked about single women last week, I am surprised about the positive responses I've gotten from that. But this week is no different because, like I said, I'm going to keep my word. We are definitely going to go after the guys this week, Saturday night. But definitely adults only, so definitely better not bring your kids. So, like I said before, all of my shows, at the link at the bottom, copy and paste there. And aside from that, guys, last thing I'll say is that COVID-19 is real. Please wear a mask. Please do social distancing. Please look out for vaccinations if you can get one, or if you can wait to get one, just make sure that you get one. Please don't fall the stupid herd immunity. This helps out. And also, thank you all you hospital workers, those that work in, those are nurses, doctors, nurses' aid, doctors' aides, environmental people that work in the hospitals. Thank you, essential people. I'm talking about those that work in fast food, retail, in the public, customer service, those that work in gas stations, grocery stores, those that are truck drivers, those that are, those that work in warehouses like Amazon, and those that work in logistics like the United States Postal Service, DHL, FedEx, and UPS. Thank you guys for all that you do, because you keep the lights on for the rest of us. Like I said before, guys, how the Frack we got here is all about staying informed. What I mean by that is we are doing what the television stations of old used to do. Is basically just give you the news and allow you to make up your mind for yourself, not persuade you to try to change your opinion. Because we do a lot better as a country when we're informed. Because uninformed people got us a golden-haired douchebag named Trump. Informed people got us our first black Madam Vice President. So that being said, guys, thank you all for watching. If you watch this playback, please comment if it's live. I definitely want to know what you guys think. Aside from that, guys, please be safe wherever you are. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.